Jake in Canada. Can you hear me, Jake?
Hello? From Canada?
Hello, Jake.
Canada?
Yep.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to say that, after some investigation and some researching, that I do think that near-death experiences are evidence for a God.
That's too bad.
Sorry?
That's too bad.
That's too bad. Why is that too bad?
Well, because senior researchers into near-death experiences over the last 50 years have begun abandoning the whole thing because they can't substantiate it. One of the leading voices for this, for example, what was her name? Susan Blackmore, eventually realized that they'd made all these predictions 50 years ago about what their research was going to resolve over the next half century, that the things that they were going to learn, the knowledge that they were going to improve upon. And they eventually realized that after 50 years of research that there are very few instances that they don't have clear explanations for. And then when you complicate that further by the fact that we still don't have any evidence that there even is a soul, neither in philosophy, nor in physics, nor in neuroscience, but that we also have all this evidence against souls, then there's not even a possibility to work with. So Susan Blackmore is no longer an advocate of, or she's not a researcher for, nor an advocate of near-death experiences. She's abandoned the whole thing.
Okay, and what makes her so important?
She was one of the senior researchers for it. But the issue is not that she is important. The issue is no possibility of this being right. There's no evidence for souls. There's substantial, profound evidence against souls. And then, as Sean Carroll put in one of his presentations, there's no possibility for anything supernatural to affect the physical, and so on. But when we effectively now know that we don't have souls.
But it depends on what evidence you're looking at. For example, if you interview people. Well, okay, that's what I'm trying to do. If you interview people who've had these NDE experiences, I mean, they would recall experiences of, getting out of their body. They would recall experiences of seeing other people in a different room. For example, if it was a hospital, they would see maybe their family members conversing or talking about them or worrying about them. They would hear.
Well, that only happens in a certain place. Yeah. So when you do the exact thing that you're talking about, but you do that in India, then what ends up happening is you end up with people coming back having met their gods and having proof of reincarnation, which would be disproof of Christianity.
Okay. Well, I'm not trying to argue Christianity. I'm just trying to argue that
the point is
there is
when you have
for
right. So the point is that when atheists go through this, if they're long-term atheists, if they were lifelong atheists, or if they are secure atheists, they didn't have the formal indoctrination, they're not recently deconverted, they're not going to have any experience at all. But if they grew up in India in a non-Christian environment, they will meet the Hindu gods. They will experience those gods and all of the things you would expect that a Hindu should expect to see, they see. And it completely contradicts
there's also people
Christian
who are
belief.
Muslim, they see Jesus. There's people.
No, the Muslims don't see Jesus. Unless it's in the context of Muslim belief. You've heard stories.
I've heard stories of Muslims. They've died.
I've heard
seen
stories
Jesus.
of Bigfoot.
Like the religions sort of interlap with these near-death experiences from what I've researched. So it's not.
I've heard stories of alien anal probes.
Okay.
And we've also heard stories of people in our Western world also thinking that they have seen
there's a consistency
gods
here.
of other religions. So there seems to be, in general, what you see is vast majority of the time, Christians see Christian afterlife, Muslims see Muslim afterlife, Hindus see Hindu afterlife. Basically, it's largely cultural relativism, which is very hard to get that if you think everyone is going out and touching the metaphysical reality, but everyone sees basically what they grew up with in their culture.
If you want to have some fun with this, just to challenge your belief system, go on YouTube and type in NDE or near-death experience, but add the word Hindu. That'll be hilarious. Because it directly contradicts what you're calling evidence. It would be evidence against what you're arguing for.
How is that against what I'm arguing for?
Because they're believing they would see what they were culturally conditioned to see, which is an entirely different pantheon, an entirely different set of gods, a wholly different religion with no connection whatsoever to the one that you're holding to. So the experiences they have they're so violently different from yours as to contradict what you want. And so it would actually count as evidence against what you're hoping for. Now, if you type, near-death experiences for atheists,
they still have the experience of the outer body experience of seeing the light, of seeing possibly their dead family members. Like these are all
not always.
These are all experiences that NDEers see, regardless of the religion. Well, it's a pattern. It's not like
right. There's no continuous pattern. It's not consistent. But I have seen a number of Hindu near-death experiences. They meet their gods in person, so they get to have conversations with their gods. And then they come back ever so confident that they have proof of reincarnation, which would disprove Christianity. Now, if there was what you're saying is that a near-death experience is evidence of the truth of the afterlife, then you have to accept that these experiences, if they're finding proof, what they're insisting is proof of reincarnation because their God explained it to them directly, well, then that contradicts your belief system, doesn't it?
But I'm not saying that I'm for Christianity or I believe in necessarily that Christianity is the religion of
but if everything that you experience is whatever you were, if you were experiencing only what you were conditioned to experience, that's the indication that it's not real, that a mind under extreme duress, oxygen deprived, then you're going to experience whatever you've been taught your whole life that you were expected to experience. It's conditioning. It's not real.
But that's not necessarily, but people who have NDEs don't necessarily experience their own cultural version of a deity.
They do sometimes necessarily experience what they're conditioned to experience. Yes, they do. Prove it. I mean, look it up.
They do. They don't, but not all the time. There are definitely cases where, a Muslim would have experienced seeing Jesus, like I said, or
you do realize that Jesus is actually important in Islam, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So Muslims seeing Jesus is actually not surprising.
No, but
especially,
they've converted, or
if that Muslim lives in a Christian society or was a converted Christian.
What'd you say?
If that Muslim is living in a Christian society or is a converted Christian, was formerly a Christian and then became a Muslim, they're even more likely to see Jesus. It's all cultural conditioning. That's it.
But sometimes they don't. Nothing. It's not even religious based. Sometimes they go into another realm, or their consciousness expands, and has nothing to do with seeing Jesus. Sometimes they just see the family members, right?
Yeah, sometimes they don't have any experiences at all, and there's never any consistency. They don't all experience the same thing like you would expect if this was really real. If it was evidence of the afterlife like you'd expect, there would be more consistency than there is. Hindus and Muslims and Christians would all see the same thing.
Okay, so you're saying that so what would convince you that there's evidence, I'm not talking about like a specific God. I'm talking about some kind of higher power God.
How about we just actually start with something even simpler? Let's do this thought experiment. So the idea of the out-of-body experience is the person, somehow their spirit, their soul, whatever it is, leaves their body and can float around and see things that otherwise wouldn't be visible, can go into other rooms, can go above the building, etc. Here is something that you could do as a test, and apparently has been attempted to do, but never did a researcher successfully show it happens. Put a random playing card above the ceiling of the hospital bed. If a person is leaving their body, they will pass up, see the card, and then when they come back, they can report what the playing card was. Do that with enough NDE patients, and then you can see, hey, are these people guessing this playing card better than random chance?
Yep.
That would actually be some interesting evidence if it could be provided. But so far, NDE researchers have failed to provide that kind of evidence.
After 50 years, still no substantiation, no consistency at all. Enough that the senior researchers are now saying, you know what, there's obviously nothing here, like I once thought there would be. They've had time to come up with something, to show something.
Yeah, but it's not. It depends on who you're talking to. I mean, there's different researchers all over the world. I mean,
and the researchers have failed to come up with good objective evidence. That's my point. Is I'm showing here's a good objective way that you could actually see, are people leaving their bodies and actually seeing things that would otherwise not be visible. And that sort of experiment has failed to actually come to fruition and show what the NDE believers want us to believe.
How are you even supposed to test that? I mean, the person has
I'll tell you.
The person has to die.
I'll tell you.
I just told you exactly how to do the test, and I'm not even proposing this test. This is what other NDE researchers have said as a way of testing it. Put a playing card in the ceiling above a hospital bed, so if there is someone suffering and in that bed and experiencing near-death experience stuff, and their body is then floating up and it's going to float above the ceiling, and then potentially, hey, they're above the ceiling, they can see that playing card that was put there. Since the chances of guessing that correctly are 1 in 52, then, hey, that's a pretty good guess if one person gets it. And if NDEs are happening at some rate, let's just say even once per year at a given hospital, well, do that after enough years, you're going to actually get a statistically significant result if these guys are actually seeing those playing cards. And that sort of test has failed to show that NDEs are real. This is, like I say, a simple way of doing this. And it has failed to show what we could have seen. I'm saying here's an objective way of doing it, cutting through all the cultural BS or anything like that, and it doesn't exist, and all we have are a whole bunch of stories. So all I can say is, Jake, cool story, bro. What else you got?
Yeah, I got one better for you, because the person doesn't even have to be in a near-death experience. When I got into transcendental meditation in high school, when I was 16, I'm dating this girl who's all into transcendental meditation. She's going to show me how to do out-of-body transmission. So I go to test her. She said that she can find me. She doesn't have to go follow a physical map. She can just concentrate on me, and she'll find me wherever I am. Okay, fine, we'll do that. She says she can't see things in quite the clarity that we do with our regular eyes, but that she'll be able to see like a fuzzy image kind of thing. She'll be able to work it out. All right, fine. So let's run a test. She's going to visit me that night. I don't go home that night. I go to spend the night at a friend's house. He's got 2 beds in his room, and I turn one of them perpendicular to the other. I take one of the box springs from his bed and I put it onto mine. So now I've got 2 box springs and a mattress, and he just has the mattress. And he had a reel-to-reel tape machine. So we go back, we just go to school the next day, and I ask her, so did you come find me? She said, yes. Okay, tell me what my environment was. She said, you weren't at home? And she had described accurately the room situation that I was in. She said that we were not sleeping parallel. I was in a room with someone else, but that we were not sleeping parallel, that we were sleeping perpendicular, and that we were at different levels. And she described something that she said looked like it had an owl's face with two great big eyes and a tiny little beak in the middle. That's a reel-to-reel tape machine. I'm sitting back astounded. She's perfectly answered that situation. Now, do you believe that story?
Do I believe that story? I don't know.
If she told you this, if you ran that test exactly like I did, and she told you this, would that convince you that she could do out of body, that she can do transcendental meditation and leave her body? Would you be convinced?
Well, she'd have to do it repeatedly.
Why?
Like, not just one time.
Was that not a good enough test?
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty good test, but I mean, it has to be repeatable.
It has to be repeatable. Very good. Because what I just described is better than what the near-death experience people ever got. And that wasn't good enough. It wasn't repeatable after 50 fucking years. And then here's the other thing to follow up on that story. When I eventually met that girl again, 20 some odd years later, she's a hardcore materialist now. Does not believe in transcendental meditation anymore. She doesn't believe her own story anymore. So bearing that in mind and realizing how questionable, how dubious, how unsubstantiated all of this is, then near-death experiences obviously are not evidence of an afterlife.
But what her experience was evidence. It is evidence. It's just, it needs to be repeatable.
It's not her experience anymore. She no longer believes it herself.
But she was accurate, right? On the recollection of the room or whatever.
Yeah, she was. And so that's one of the very few instances in which eventually she didn't believe her own stories anymore. And what do you do with that? If the person who did it doesn't believe it, how can you believe it?
The person who...
So then what we end up with is, you remember the kid who got famous by writing the book? You remember the kid who got famous by writing a book about how he'd gone to heaven for 15 minutes? And then 6 years later or so, confessed that his parents talked him into writing that book and that he didn't really have those experiences? That's what we're talking about. So again, we've got nothing repeatable. We don't have anything that you said it had to be repeated. We've got somebody that met a very good standard of evidence once, but couldn't do it again and doesn't believe it now, and has recanted her own story. So, and that's all we ever had. So we said very few instances that didn't have good, clear explanations. This is one of those very few instances. No good, clear explanation, except that she doesn't believe it herself. If she still held that was true and that really happened, I'd have to sit here and stroke my beard about how that could have really happened. But she doesn't. So I've got nothing. And near-death experiences, we got nothing.
Okay, well, I probably think it's probably because she changed her belief system over time, and then she kind of knocked out that memory. What does a belief system mean? Does a belief system mean that you just decide, hey, I'm gonna make believe some other set of lies? Is that what a belief system is? Personally, I think that is what it is. Well, you just told me that she's a materialist, correct?
Yeah.
So she changed her.
So she gave up belief system. Right. So she gave up a belief system. She didn't gain a belief system. No, she got rid of all her systems. A belief system is where you have required beliefs. You have required beliefs and you have prohibited beliefs. When you go to free thought, you are now able to think and believe whatever makes sense to you and change your mind as you feel necessary.
But
so it is not.
But this is the thing I disagree with. But this is what I disagree with atheists is that you have, as a human being, you have to believe in something, right?
No, you don't.
Either you believe that something. Yes, you do. Because if you didn't believe in anything, you couldn't even get up in the morning.
No. We can accept things to be evidently true, but when you say belief system, we're talking about something else. Now we're talking about make-believe. We're talking about something where you're determined to believe something, whether it's evidently true or not.
No, because being a materialist is a belief system.
No, it isn't.
100%.
100% not.
Okay, so we know
It's
that there's things
0%
that
a belief
exist.
system.
It's 100% a belief system.
It's 100%
We
not
know,
a belief system. Do not tell me
know
what I believe and what I don't believe. I know better than you what I do or don't believe. Trust me on this. I'm me, not you.
if you're a materialist,
Not having a belief is not having a belief.
Can you listen to me for a sec? That doesn't make sense. Because if you're a materialist...
Don't pretend as if you know what I do or don't believe. I know better than you.
Yeah, well, that's arrogance. That's not
No,
being
that's
humble.
just a fucking fact. So if you want to,
pretty sure it's the height of arrogance that you tell somebody else what they actually believe. That sounds far more arrogant than you know him better than he knows himself.
Yeah. So I have analyzed my position. I have analyzed my position, and I realize that faith is the most dishonest and auto-deceptive position a man can hold. So the best thing to do if you want to seek the truth is give up faith entirely. Give up beliefs. Hold tentatively only to what the evidence can support.
You can't, because you're a human being. You need to believe in something.
No,
whether you believe that God exists or whether you believe...
I don't. I don't have to make believe things that are not evidently true. I don't have to believe anything. Quit repeating an error after you have been corrected, sir.
No, I haven't been corrected, because what you're saying isn't true.
You have been corrected. You are trying to tell me what I believe when I know for a fact better than you do. I don't have a belief system. I know what a belief system is, and you apparently don't. So either correct this error or be dropped from the call.
I just want to mention something about materialism before you drop the call.
What the fuck do you know about materialism?
Okay, so you're just going to yell at me and think you win the argument?
I just asked you a question, and you're going to demonstrate your ignorance. I am an animal, and so are you.
It might win you an argument online, but it won't win you an argument with an actual rational person.
No, I'm not talking to a rational person, so I don't need to worry about it. I just asked you a question. What the fuck do you know about materialism? You just demonstrated you don't know what a belief system is. You don't know what human needs are. You think everybody needs to believe something, but no, they don't. And you don't correct your errors.
You believe what you see with your senses. Is that correct?
Actually,
I said I will tentatively accept only what the evidence supports, only so far as the evidence supports it. That's the very difference between free thought and a belief system. What?
Evidence could be what you see, what you hear, what you taste. That's
evidence is a body of objectively verifiable facts. Evidence is a body of objectively verifiable facts that are positively indicative of or exclusively concordant with one available position or hypothesis over any other. So I have many times in my life thought that I had facts to support me, but when I investigate those, I find out that the facts are not actually good enough, or they're not as reliable as I thought they were, and thus I am forced to change my mind.
Okay.
Whereas in a belief system, you won't do that. In a belief system, you're going to continue to believe what you want to believe regardless what the facts are.
I mean, either way, if you're saying that the facts are that God doesn't exist.
No, the fact that God evidently does not exist. And logically does not exist.
Based on what?
Evidence and logic.
So what is the evidence?
First of all, there's no evidence for God. Secondly, there's profound and abundant evidence against God. And every argument for God is a logical fallacy, and every logical fallacy has been used as an evidence for God. So you have no actual factual evidence for God, and you have no logically valid arguments for God either. But we do have logical arguments and abundant evidence against God. Both.
If you're a materialist. You have
no,
to be a
if
materialist.
you're not a materialist,
Yeah.
we still have objectively verifiable facts that contradict the God hypothesis. It doesn't matter whether you're a theist or not. Yes, you do. I made a video listing these. Yes, we do. And I made a video listing these. You can look them up. Aron Ra, evidence against God. I put in a long list. So yes, we do.
Every argument that I've heard an atheist claim against God is a physical-based evidence.
And what would a non-physical based?
Yeah, exactly.
There's obviously
Jake, if you can actually show there actually is something non-physical. The problem is, Jake, we've got no evidence of anything non-physical.
Yeah. If you want to, we can go into the physical-based arguments
that we believe that exist that are non-physical. Are there things that you believe that? So there's nothing in this world that you believe that's
supernatural. There's no supernatural at all. So I'm going to suggest that maybe you said that every argument you've ever heard has been physical-based. So let's look at the fact that all faith healers, every last faith healer in the world ever, was a fraud. That is a physical argument. That's physical evidence against God. Every last one, everywhere, for all time, all frauds.
No, it isn't.
Never a valid.
Those are scammers. That has nothing to do with God. They're using religion.
Find
for
one
their own
that isn't a
gain.
scammer. Find one faith healer that can walk into a children's hospital and empty the place. Find one that can, with an 80% accuracy or better. You can't, because they don't exist, because every last one of them, all of them combined, they're all frauds. There's not a real one. Never was.
Okay, here's the point.
Physical evidence, objectively verifiable fact against God. You said there's no evidence against God. I just gave you an example. Then there's another.
Evidence against God.
All of the scriptures of every religion are man-made folklore, where we know that every page of it was written by men, not gods, and that their prophecies many of them have failed prophecies, including the Bible has a lot of failed prophecies. We already talked about some of those earlier today. And they all have absurdities, inconsistencies, atrocities, and things that we know are not true, scientific idiocy. All of them claim as true things that we can prove to be false. Every last scripture written, no exceptions. And that includes the Bible.
Right.
Like the Bible says that the earth is flat, is covered with a giant crystal dome with windows in it to let the water in from the water above the firmament. The firmament doesn't exist. The earth doesn't sit on columns. There is no firmament. The sun and the moon are not the same size. The sun and the moon do not travel around the earth. The stars do not have personalities, and they cannot come down to earth to wage war with men. The Bible says all kinds of ridiculous things. Snakes and donkeys, you might be surprised to know, they can't talk. They really can't. There's no such things as magic.
I don't
witches and warlocks and all that shit. The Bible is full of horse shit that isn't real, that we can prove isn't real.
Yeah, but it's full of good things too. Like, you can't just dismiss the whole Bible based on.
It's full of evil.
You know,
It's full of objectively verifiable evil. It advocates for child sex trafficking. It advocates for genocide.
No, it doesn't.
Numbers 31. Yes, it does. It multiple times advocates for child sex trafficking. You can sell your own daughter into slavery, and if she fails to satisfy the man that you sold her to, he can let her go. He with no payment now. He can let her go wander in the wilderness alone. So that there's an unprotected girl wandering.
Slavery, but I'm sorry, I haven't heard child slavery in the Bible. I don't know.
Well, maybe read the fucking Bible. That's the number one way to become an atheist. It has been advised that the best way to become an atheist is to read the Bible cover to cover. Read it for comprehension. Realize what it actually says. You said you read the Bible and you apparently didn't know that the Bible advocates for abortion just because a man feels insecure about whether his wife has cheated on him. You didn't realize that it advocates for child sex trafficking? Seriously? Do you read for comprehension? Are you not aware that it says these things? No. Read Numbers 31 again. Yeah, read it again.
Okay. Sure.
You pick up on the clues. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye because we finished this question. And I do have another theist. As a matter of fact, I think I've got two. Yes, I've got another theist. And, well, we seem to have lost one of them, damn it. It was one that had a good topic, too. And we dropped that one. Damn. Oh, well.
Well, I'm not really convinced of your findings. I mean, I need more evidence, you know.
You need evidence.
Yeah, I
okay.
Need
all right. Here,
exactly.
Let me make a challenge to you then. You can contact me separate from this show if you like, and just show me one thing that any theologian, any creationist or whatever, any faith healer, any exorcist or whatever, one thing that any of these people have ever argued that is actually factually correct, verifiably accurate by both parties so that we can show that it is an actual fact and that is also positively indicative of the God hypothesis or exclusively concordant with that. Show me one thing that any theist ever argued in favor of their position that wasn't just an out-and-out lie. That's the challenge.
Okay, like I already know. I don't even need to say it, but I mean, my point here is that if
you
you're
don't need to say it, you already know, but you don't need to say it. Is that an admission that you already know that there's not one example you could give?
Yeah, I mean, look at the past 100 years. I mean, there's been more atheists the past 100 years than there has in any time in history, and society has gone to shit.
The more we learn, the more we know, the less we believe. The more we learn,
actually, we are probably in the most peaceful, prosperous time in human history.
Oh, really? We're in the brink of World War III, and we're in the most peaceful time in human history. That's funny.
Yep. The more
of World War III.
Because you don't know anything, and that's because you memes rather than what's actually happening in reality.
That's got to be a joke.
If you actually look and see what has been happening for all of human history, you will actually find the vast majority of our time, most cultures were at war with other cultures. We have been absolutely freakishly lucky in this time. So among the books I'm going to recommend is Steven Pinker's The Better Angels of Our Nature, who also summarizes a lot of the work there, showing that, hey, we actually happen to be in our most prosperous times, most peaceful time, lowest levels of violent crime, nonviolent crime, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, all the metrics that we can go on and measure suggest that we happen to be in the best of times. Now, obviously, in a political sense, you're going to have, issues depending on which side of the political spectrum you're on. I can't believe Trump got elected. I can't believe Trump didn't get elected, et cetera. But if you get past all those little political fluctuations, you realize, holy crap, I am so much happier that I'm alive now than I was 100 years ago, let alone 1,000 years ago, let alone 6,000 years ago.
Yep. You can also look up the most peaceful countries, the most secular. Hold on a second. The most secular countries are also the most peaceful, with the lowest crime rate, the lowest murder rate, and the most religious countries, as well as the most religious states within this country, all have the highest crime rate and the highest murder rate. That's not an anomaly. That's a consistency. And the more religious someone is, according to crime statistic, and I'm an atheist and I got kids. Is there anything else you'd like to lie about me? So another statistic is that the more
I'm talking about our population is declining because people are not having kids because they don't believe in children. They don't.
I believe in children. I can prove they exist.
They
don't have to believe in children because I can prove they exist. We're trying to explain some things to you that all of the evidence contradicts what you believe. So in crime prevention statistics, they've noticed that the more religious an offender is, the more and younger victims they will have. That there's a correlation between extreme religiosity and advocacy of the death penalty and advocacy of capital punishment and corporal punishment and child sex abuse.
First off, the least religious people in this world advocate for abortion. They all advocate for abortion.
That doesn't have anything to do with child sex abuse, does it? That has nothing to do with child sex abuse, now does it?
If you look at the top politicians of this world, they're mostly pedophiles, and they're atheists. They don't believe in God.
Oh, I'm sorry. Robert Morris just lost his ministry. What was the reason?
Okay.
I wonder why Robert Morris's website just got taken down today. Do you know why that was? He was a presidential advisor, a spiritual advisor to President Trump. I wonder why. Oh, yeah. Child sex molestation. Just like the Catholics have this huge reputation. But you know what? It turned out it was not just the Catholics with the choir boys. It turns out there's all these evangelical ministers as well, especially the teen youth counselors. Whoa, do they have a reputation? So you know how to tell the difference? Do you know how to tell the difference between the Catholic and Protestant clergy? It's by which gender of children they molest.
Do you know that the highest rate of child abuse is actually within the school, the education system right now?
I don't know that.
Not within the church.
If it is because 20% of our teachers are young Earth creationists.
Well, most teachers are women, and a lot of those teachers are molesting young boys.
So you're saying that women molest more than men do? I don't think that's statistically supported either. Is there anything else you'd like to be?
I think it is because
today? I don't think you can justify any of the assertions you've made so far today. So far, you've been wrong on every point, every time.
Well, I think you're wrong. Like, I don't think you've made any good points either.
You think I'm wrong, but I told you ways that you can check to confirm independently. You can get on Google right now and show that I'm right and you're wrong. And everybody else is welcome to do that too. And if anybody in a moment will be able to see I'm right and you're wrong on every point you've tried to make.
You know that Google is a company, right? It's a corporation.
Yeah.
So if you Google something, it might not necessarily be true. Because
what happens when everybody
through Google is filtered through the corporation. So Google.
Oh, so are you saying that there's a vast global conspiracy? So that when you Google something,
no, it's a fact. So if you're telling me to Google something, that just shows you don't know what you're talking about. Because
if you Google something, it shows you don't know.
There's more than one search engine out there, right?
Give me a reliable.
You're going to get to the same results.
Google something.
Well, Jake, you can choose any reliable source you want. You realize that Google or Excite or any of the ones that you want to use, they're all going to direct you to different organizations, different statistics, polling centers, or whatever, and you can quickly see what data is supported, and you're going to quickly see that the Catholic Church really has a problem with the choir boy situation. Well, we lost our guy. Oh, well, no great loss.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jimmy Snow, executive producer of The Line, and the rumors are true. Forrest Valkai is, in fact, a hostage in my basement. If you would like to contribute to his freedom one day, you can do so by supporting us over on Patreon or becoming a channel member. There are specific tiers for specific shows or the channel at large. You can also send us super thanks. Those are great. You can like, comment, and subscribe. Also, fudge the algorithm. Go to one of these things. The algorithm doesn't matter. It thinks it knows you better than we do. Better than you do? I know you better. Hank. There's a bunch of people named Hank. I just freaked way out. Okay, go to one of these.